Lieutenant James Walker stood at the command center of the EDF Vigilant, his eyes fixed on the massive alien vessel that had appeared without warning 3 hours ago. The ship was unlike anything humans had ever encountered, sleek, impossibly large, and covered in what appeared to be armored plates that shimmered with an iridescent glow. "Status report," Walker demanded, his voice steady despite the tension that gripped his chest. "Weapons are online, sir. Shields at maximum capacity," responded Officer Reed from the tactical station. "But if that thing decides to attack, I'm not sure how much good it'll do us." Walker nodded grimly. The Vigilant was a patrol vessel designed for border security and minor skirmishes with pirates. It wasn't built to face whatever this was. The alien ship had positioned itself directly in the middle of Earth's primary trade route to Mars, effectively creating a blockade without firing a shot. "Any response to our communications?" Walker asked. Communications Officer Patel shook her head. "Nothing, sir. We've tried all standard first contact protocols." Walker rubbed his temples. The Vigilant was the only military vessel in the sector. Reinforcements from Earth would take at least 6 hours to arrive. Until then, his crew of 23 was humanity's only line of defense if things went bad. "Sir," Patel suddenly straightened in her chair, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel." The command center fell silent. This was the moment they had been waiting for, yet dreading. "Put it through," Walker ordered, squaring his shoulders. The main view screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The creature had a hard, exoskeleton-like surface where humans would have skin, with deep-set eyes that glowed an amber color. Intricate ridges and markings covered what appeared to be its face. "I am General Vex of the Tal'Dari Expedition Fleet." The alien spoke in surprisingly good English, though the voice had a metallic quality to it. "We request permission to board your vessel." Walker exchanged glances with his second-in-command, Officer Lin. This was not what they had expected. "General Vex, this is Lieutenant James Walker of the Earth Defense Fleet. May I ask why you wish to board our vessel?" The alien's face remained impassive, making it impossible to read its emotions. "I must be inspected by humans before we proceed." "Inspected," Walker repeated, confusion evident in his voice. "It is our way," General Vex stated flatly. "Before any formal contact between species, commanders must be physically inspected by their counterparts. I offer myself for your inspection." The command center erupted in hushed whispers. Walker silenced them with a raised hand. "General, we are unfamiliar with this custom. Could you elaborate on what this inspection entails?" "A physical examination of my form, capabilities, and fitness for command," Vex replied. "It is a matter of honor and tradition." Walker muted the transmission and turned to his crew. "Thoughts?" "Could be a trap," Lin suggested immediately. "Get one of us alone, capture them, extract information. Or it could be exactly what they say, a cultural ritual," countered Officer Reed. "Remember the misunderstanding with the Proxima colony? Nearly started a war because we didn't respect their greeting customs." Walker unmuted the transmission. "General Vex, I need to consult with my superiors about this request. Please stand by." "You have 1 Earth hour to decide," Vex replied before the screen went dark. Walker immediately opened a secure channel to Earth Command. After explaining the situation, Admiral Jones appeared on screen. "This could be an opportunity, Lieutenant," the Admiral said thoughtfully. "We know nothing about these Tal'Dari. If they're willing to let you examine one of their commanders, we could gain valuable intelligence. Or it could be an elaborate trap," Walker countered. "That's always a possibility," the Admiral agreed. "But our scans show their weapon systems aren't powered up. If they wanted to destroy you, they could have done so already." Walker considered this. "What are your orders, sir?" "Accept their request, but with conditions. Suggest a neutral location for this inspection. Don't put your ship at risk." Walker ended the transmission and reopened the channel to the alien vessel. General Vex's face reappeared immediately, as if he had been waiting. General Vex, I accept your request for inspection, Walker announced. However, for security reasons, I propose we meet at the automated trading station in Sector 7. Neither of our vessels will approach within firing range. Vex was silent for a moment, then inclined his head slightly. Acceptable. I will arrive alone in one cycle of your Earth hour. As the transmission ended, Walker felt a bead of sweat roll down his spine. He was about to make first contact with an unknown alien species alone, based on a custom he didn't understand. Officer Lin, you have command while I'm gone, Walker said, heading toward the shuttle bay. If I don't return in 3 hours, you contact Earth Command and get out of here. The fate of Earth might just depend on how well he performed an inspection he knew nothing about. Walker sat in the shuttle, his fingers tapping nervously against the control panel as he approached the trading station. The structure floated in the emptiness of space, a neutral ground used by various merchant vessels to exchange goods without landing on each other's planets. Today, it would serve as the meeting point between humanity and the mysterious Taldari. Vigilant to shuttle, comms check. Officer Lin's voice crackled through the speaker. Receiving you clearly, Walker responded. Any movement from the alien vessel? A small craft detached about 5 minutes ago. Appears to be heading to the trading station as agreed. Only one life sign aboard. Walker nodded to himself. At least General Vex was keeping his word so far. Keep the Vigilant at a safe distance, but be ready to extract me if needed. Understood, sir. And good luck. The communication ended, leaving Walker alone with his thoughts. Through the shuttle's viewport, he could see the trading station growing larger. It was a simple cylindrical structure with docking ports extending like spokes from a central hub. As he approached, he noticed another craft already docked on the opposite side, sleek and angular, with the same iridescent sheen as the main Taldari vessel. After docking his shuttle, Walker checked his sidearm and communication device. He hesitated, then attached a small recording device to his uniform collar. If this went badly, at least Earth Command would know what happened. The trading station was eerily quiet, its automated systems humming softly in the background. Walker moved cautiously through the corridors, following the station's guidance system toward the central meeting area. He entered a large circular room designed for trade negotiations. Standing in the center was General Vex. In person, the alien was even more imposing than on the view screen. Vex stood nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms instead of 2, each ending in 3-fingered hands. The exoskeleton Walker had noticed before covered the alien's entire body, adorned with intricate markings that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. Lieutenant Walker, Vex spoke, his voice carrying that same metallic quality. You have come alone as agreed. Walker nodded, keeping a respectful distance. I have, General. I'm still not entirely clear on what this inspection involves. Vex straightened his posture, arms at his sides. It is simple. You must examine me physically to determine if I am a worthy adversary. This is the way of the Taldari. We do not engage in conflict without first allowing our enemies to know whom they face. Walker frowned. I never said we were enemies, General. All unknown species are potential enemies until proven otherwise. Vex replied matter-of-factly. This is the first step in determining which we shall be. Walker considered his options. This strange ritual clearly held deep cultural significance for the Taldari. Refusing might be seen as an insult, or worse, a sign of weakness. Before we proceed, Walker said carefully, I should inform you that humans don't have a similar custom. I'm not trained in how to conduct such an inspection. This is acceptable, Vex responded. Judge me as you would judge one of your own warriors. Assess my physical capabilities, my fitness for command, my potential in battle. Walker took a deep breath. Very well. May I approach you? Vex nodded once, standing perfectly still as Walker moved closer. During my inspection, I'd like to ask you some questions about your intentions in our solar system, Walker said, circling the alien slowly. That is not part of the inspection ritual, Vex replied stiffly. It is part of our human ritual, Walker countered quickly. We assess intentions as well as physical capabilities. Vex was silent for a moment, then inclined his head. Ask your questions, but know that I may not answer all of them. Walker nodded, beginning to examine the alien commander more closely. The exoskeleton appeared both flexible and incredibly strong, with joint sections that allowed for fluid movement. Why have you positioned your vessel in our trade route? Walker asked, noting the powerful muscle structure visible beneath the exoskeleton at Vex's shoulders. It was the most efficient position to initiate contact, Vex replied. It ensured you would notice us immediately. There are less threatening ways to make contact, Walker observed, moving to examine the alien's forearms. This positioning looks like a blockade to us. Interesting, Vex said. To us, it is merely practical. We intended no threat. As Walker continued his improvised inspection, he realized he was learning valuable information about Tal'Dari physiology. Their exoskeletons appeared strongest at the chest and back, but thinner at the joints. Their four eyes provided excellent peripheral vision, but might indicate vulnerability to bright, sudden light. One final question, Walker said, completing his circle around the alien. What do you want from us? Vex's amber eyes fixed on Walker. That will be revealed after the inspection is complete. Now, Lieutenant Walker, have you determined if I am a worthy adversary? Walker met the alien's gaze steadily. I believe I have, General Vex, and I'm ready to give my assessment. Behind them, the station's atmospheric systems hummed quietly, the only witness to this strange first meeting between human and Tal'Dari. Walker stood before General Vex, acutely aware that his next words might determine the future relationship between humans and this new alien species. He took a deep breath and delivered his assessment. General Vex, I find you to be physically formidable. Your exoskeleton provides natural armor that would give you advantages in combat. Your forearms allow for complex manipulation and likely give you an edge in both close combat and handling multiple weapons. Your height and build suggest considerable strength. Vex remained motionless, giving no indication of whether Walker's assessment pleased or offended him. However, Walker continued, I also notice potential weaknesses. The joints in your exoskeleton appear to be less protected. Your eyes, while providing excellent field of vision, might be sensitive to certain light spectrums. And despite your physical advantages, I suspect you may be slower than humans in rapid direction changes. At this, Vex's upper arms moved slightly in what might have been a gesture of surprise. You are observant, Lieutenant Walker, Vex said. Few species identify our joint vulnerabilities so quickly. Walker nodded, uncertain if he'd just passed some kind of test. Is my assessment complete? Have I fulfilled the requirements of your ritual? Not yet, Vex replied. The physical inspection is only the first part. Now I must explain why this tradition exists among the Tal'Dari. The alien moved to a circular table in the center of the room and gestured for Walker to join him. As they both took seats, Walker noticed how smoothly Vex moved despite his seemingly rigid exterior. The Tal'Dari evolved as hunters on a world with many predators, Vex began. Our ancestors learned to evaluate their opponents before engaging. Those who could accurately assess threats survived. Those who could not perished. Walker nodded. Similar to human evolution in some ways. Perhaps, Vex said. But for us, it became more than survival. It became sacred. When we developed civilization and warfare became formalized, our leaders continued this practice. Before battle, commanders would inspect each other. It became a way to ensure honorable combat. To know your enemy is to respect your enemy. And this applies to first contact with other species. Walker asked. Especially then, Vex replied, his voice gaining intensity. The unknown carries the greatest potential for both alliance and destruction. We do not fight those we have not inspected. It would be. He paused, searching for the word. Dishonorable. Walker processed this information carefully. So by allowing this inspection, you're determining whether humans are worthy of being your enemies, or worthy of being our allies, Vex added. The inspection helps us determine which path to take. For the first time, Walker felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this encounter wouldn't end in conflict after all. And what have you determined about humans so far? Walker asked cautiously. Vex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. You are physically weaker than Taldari. Your skin offers minimal protection. You lack natural weapons. Then he added, yet you ventured alone to meet me, knowing these disadvantages. This suggests either great courage or great foolishness. Walker couldn't help but smile slightly. We humans are often accused of both. There is something else, Vex continued, leaning forward. You adapted to the inspection ritual despite its unfamiliarity. You turned it to your advantage, gathering information about me while fulfilling the requirements. This adaptability interests me greatly. The conversation was interrupted by a soft beeping from Walker's communication device. He checked it quickly. My ship is requesting an update. They're concerned about my safety. Your crew values you, Vex observed. Another point in humanity's favor. Strong bonds between warriors suggest a society worth knowing better. Walker sent a brief message indicating he was safe and continuing discussions. When he looked up, he found Vex studying him intently. Lieutenant Walker, I have made my assessment, but our ritual is not yet complete, the alien announced. There is one final test before I can determine if humans are worthy adversaries or potential allies. Walker felt the tension return to his shoulders. And what test is that? Vex rose to his full height, towering over Walker. Among the Taldari, after inspection comes demonstration. I must see your combat capabilities firsthand. Walker's hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm. You want to fight me? Not to harm, Vex clarified. To learn. To understand how humans fight when faced with a physically superior opponent. Walker stood slowly, weighing his options. Refusing might trigger a hostile response. Accepting meant physical combat with a creature twice his strength. Very well, Walker said finally. How do we proceed with this demonstration? Vex's upper arms made a gesture Walker couldn't interpret. Follow me to the station's cargo bay. It will provide adequate space for what comes next. As they left the meeting room, Walker sent another quick message to the Vigilant. Proceeding to combat demonstration. Stand by. He hoped he wasn't walking into a trap, or worse, starting an interstellar war. The cargo bay was a vast, empty space with high ceilings and metal flooring. Walker followed General Vex to the center of the room, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous area. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the floor, giving the scene an eerie quality. Before we begin this demonstration, Walker said, I'd like to understand more about Taldari culture. If we're to determine whether we're enemies or allies, cultural knowledge seems as important as combat skills. Vex tilted his head, considering this request. This is unusual, but reasonable. He gestured with his lower right arm toward the floor. We may sit and exchange knowledge before the physical demonstration. They sat cross-legged on the metal floor, facing each other. Walker noticed how Vex's exoskeleton flexed and adjusted with each movement, suggesting a sophisticated biological design. The Taldari place highest value on physical perfection, Vex began. From birth, our young are tested and trained. Those who excel become warriors or leaders. Those who show less physical promise become our thinkers, builders, and cultivators. A case system based on physical attributes, Walker asked. Not rigid castes, Vex corrected. Roles based on natural strengths. All are valued for their contributions, but warriors are our society's protectors and therefore most honored. Walker nodded. Humans once organized similarly in many cultures, but we've moved toward valuing diverse abilities equally. Our military personnel are respected, but so are our scientists, artists, and teachers. Vex's eyes blinked in sequence again, which Walker was beginning to recognize as a sign of interest. This diversity approach, it produces effective results. It's why we've survived and thrived, Walker explained. Different perspectives solve problems in different ways. When we face challenges on Earth, it was rarely pure strength that saved us. It was innovation, cooperation, and adaptability. Fascinating, Vex said, leaning forward slightly. We have been observing humans for some time. We noted your physical limitations, but had not fully appreciated this adaptability you mention. Walker felt a chill run down his spine. You've been watching us. For how long? 3 of your Earth months, Vex replied matter-of-factly. Standard protocol before any first contact. We monitored your communications, studied your military capabilities, observed your daily patterns. Walker tried to hide his alarm. Earth's detection systems had completely missed the Tal'Dari presence until they chose to reveal themselves. And what did you conclude from this observation? Walker asked carefully. Vex's upper arms made a fluid gesture. That humans are confusing. You are physically weak compared to many species we've encountered. Your lifespans are short. Your bodies damage easily. Yet you venture into space with confidence. You establish colonies on hostile worlds. You persist despite obvious limitations. Walker couldn't help but smile. We're stubborn that way. More than stubborn, Vex said. The word in our language would be. He made a complex sound Walker couldn't hope to reproduce. The closest translation might be adaptively resilient, or perhaps evolutionarily clever. I'll take that as a compliment, Walker said. It was meant as one, Vex confirmed. But now, I have observed enough through words. I must observe through action. He rose to his feet with surprising grace. The combat demonstration will now begin. Walker stood, feeling decidedly less graceful than the alien commander. What are the rules of this demonstration? Simple. We each demonstrate our natural combat abilities. No lethal force. The demonstration ends when one yields or when I determine I have learned enough about human combat techniques. Walker removed his jacket, leaving him in his standard-issue undershirt. He knew he was physically outmatched in every way, but perhaps that was part of the test, how humans handle overwhelming odds. I'm ready, Walker said, settling into a basic defensive stance. Vex observed this with apparent interest. Already you show adaptation. Your stance acknowledges your vulnerability, yet maximizes your response capabilities. Without warning, the alien moved forward with blinding speed. Walker barely had time to react as one of Vex's lower arms swept toward his legs. He jumped, narrowly avoiding the sweep, and used the momentum to create distance between them. Good, Vex commented. You prioritize maintaining distance from a stronger opponent. Walker didn't waste breath responding. He circled cautiously, looking for weaknesses in the alien's stance. Despite having 4 arms, Vex seemed to favor his upper right, perhaps their dominant arm, Walker thought. When Vex moved again, Walker was ready. Instead of backing away, he stepped into the attack, ducking under Vex's upper arms and landing a solid strike to the thinner exoskeleton near the alien's midsection. Vex made a sound Walker couldn't interpret, surprise, pain, or perhaps approval. The alien commander stepped back, all 4 eyes fixed on Walker. Most interesting, Vex said. You targeted a vulnerability rather than attempting to match strength. Efficient. Practical. He lowered his arms. I have seen enough for now. Walker remained in his defensive stance. That's it. The demonstration is over. This phase is complete, Vex confirmed. You have shown me how humans fight. Now I must show you something in return. Vex moved to the center of the cargo bay and extended all 4 of his arms outward. With a series of quick movements, he reached behind his back and produced a metallic object that unfolded into what appeared to be a staff weapon. This is a Tal'Dari war staff, Vex explained. Each warrior crafts their own upon reaching maturity. It is an extension of ourselves. Walker watched as Vex began to demonstrate the weapon's use. The alien moved with fluid grace, the staff becoming a blur as it spun and struck at invisible enemies. The display was impressive, a perfect blend of strength, speed, and precision. In Taldari culture, Vex continued without pausing his demonstration. A commander must be more skilled than those who follow. I earned my position by defeating 12 challengers in ritual combat. The staff suddenly collapsed back into its compact form, and Vex returned it to a compartment in his exoskeleton. He fixed his 4 eyes on Walker. "Now, Lieutenant Walker, I challenge you to demonstrate your most skilled combat form." Walker hesitated. "I don't carry a personal weapon like your war staff. Standard protocol for diplomatic meetings." "Not a weapon demonstration," Vex interrupted. "A skills demonstration. Show me how a human commander proves their worth." Walker considered this request. Earth's military didn't determine leadership through combat trials, but he understood the importance of this moment. He needed to show something that would impress the Taldari commander. "Very well," Walker said, moving to the center of the cargo bay. "On Earth, our military leaders are trained in multiple combat disciplines. I'll demonstrate one called Krav Maga, a fighting style designed for real-world survival against bigger, stronger opponents." Walker began with basic movements, showing striking techniques aimed at vulnerable points. He demonstrated defensive moves, explaining how humans turn an attacker's strength against them. As he moved through more complex sequences, he felt Vex's eyes tracking his every motion. "Impressive efficiency," Vex commented. "You target joints, sensory organs, and balance points, similar to how you identified weaknesses in my physiology." Walker finished his demonstration with a series of rapid movements designed to disable multiple attackers. When he stopped, he was breathing heavily, but felt a sense of accomplishment. "Your fighting style confirms my observations," Vex said. "Humans compensate for physical limitations with tactical thinking." Walker nodded, catching his breath. "That's accurate. We adapt to overcome stronger opponents." "Now," Vex announced, "we must complete the final stage of assessment. Direct combat between commanders." Walker felt his stomach tighten. "I thought we just did that." "Those were demonstrations," Vex explained. "Now we must test our abilities against each other. This is the most sacred part of our ritual, where true understanding is gained." Walker knew refusing wasn't an option. The future relationship between humans and Taldari might depend on how he handled this challenge. "Will this be to submission?" Walker asked, mentally preparing himself. "To recognition," Vex corrected. "The purpose is not victory but understanding. We fight until we truly know each other as warriors." Walker nodded and resumed his defensive stance. "I'm ready." Vex moved with startling speed for his size. 2 arms struck high while a third swept low. Walker ducked the high attack and jumped the low one, but Vex's 4th arm caught him mid-air and sent him tumbling across the floor. Walker rolled to his feet, wincing at the impact but staying focused. He had expected to be outmatched physically. Now he needed to prove humans could adapt. As Vex advanced again, Walker changed tactics. Instead of evading, he moved toward the alien, getting inside the reach of those long arms. He landed 2 quick strikes to the joint areas he had identified earlier as vulnerable. Vex made a clicking sound and adjusted his fighting style immediately, using his upper arms to grapple while the lower ones struck at Walker's legs. The fight continued for several minutes. Walker was thrown, struck, and knocked down repeatedly, but each time he rose, analyzed, and adapted his approach. He managed to land effective counterstrikes by targeting vulnerable areas and using the alien's momentum against him. Finally, after Walker executed a particularly effective counter that momentarily unbalanced the alien commander, Vex stepped back and raised all 4 arms. "Enough," he announced. "I have what I sought." Walker lowered his hands but remained alert, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. His uniform torn at the shoulder. "And what did you learn?" Walker asked between heavy breaths. Vex's eyes focused intently on the human. That physical strength is not the only measure of a warrior. Your species lacks our natural advantages, yet you persist, adapt, and overcome. You turn disadvantage into opportunity. The alien commander stepped forward and, in what seemed like a formal gesture, placed one of his upper hands on Walker's shoulder. "Lieutenant James Walker of Earth, I have made my assessment, and now I must share with you why the Taldari have truly come to your solar system." Walker straightened his posture, ignoring his various injuries. Whatever came next would determine the fate of human-Taldari relations, perhaps even the fate of Earth itself. Vex guided Walker back to the meeting room, where both took seats at the circular table once more. The alien commander seemed different now. The formal rigidity in his posture had softened slightly. "Lieutenant Walker," Vex began, "what I am about to share with you has not been revealed to any other species we have encountered in this sector of space." Walker leaned forward, wincing slightly from the pain in his ribs. "I'm listening, General." "The Taldari are not explorers or conquerors," Vex said, his voice lower than before. "We are refugees." This was not what Walker had expected. Refugees. From what? "From something we call the Voidborn," Vex replied, the metallic tone of his voice carrying an unmistakable note of dread. "A consuming force that has already destroyed 3 star systems in our home region." Walker watched as Vex's upper arms made a motion that seemed to indicate distress. "Our scientists first detected them 20 cycles ago, approximately 15 Earth years," Vex continued. "At first, we believed them to be a natural phenomenon, perhaps a new type of cosmic storm. By the time we understood they were sentient, it was too late for many of our outer colonies." "What exactly are these Voidborn?" Walker asked. Vex's 4 eyes blinked in that sequential pattern. "They exist partly in normal space and partly in what your scientists might call subspace. They consume energy, all energy, in any form. When they enter a star system, they begin by absorbing energy from the outer planets, working their way inward until they reach the star itself." "And they destroyed your homeworld?" Walker asked softly. "Not yet," Vex answered. "But they will. Our most advanced models predict they will reach our home system within 5 Earth years. We have evacuated who we could, but billions remain." Walker sat back, processing this information. "So you came to our solar system seeking allies," Vex finished. "Or at the very least, a temporary haven. But the Taldari do not beg. We do not arrive as weaklings seeking protection. Our way, our honor, demands that we approach potential allies as warriors first." The inspection ritual, Walker realized. You needed to know if humans were strong enough to be worthy allies. "Yes," Vex confirmed. "Many species we encountered before were physically impressive, but lacked adaptability. Others were technologically advanced, but had no warrior spirit. None were suitable allies against the Voidborn." "And humans?" Walker asked. "What did you determine about us?" Vex leaned forward, all 4 eyes fixed intensely on Walker. "Your physical form is unimpressive by Taldari standards. Your technology is functional, but not exceptional. But your adaptability." The alien made a gesture with his upper arms that Walker interpreted as emphasis. "In all our travels, we have never encountered a species that adapts as quickly as humans do." "Adaptability has always been our strength," Walker acknowledged. "More than a strength," Vex said. "It may be the key to survival against the Voidborn. The Taldari have been fighting them for years using our traditional methods: overwhelming force, superior tactics, physical perfection. We have failed consistently." Vex placed something on the table between them, a small device that projected a holographic image of what appeared to be a dark, shifting cloud enveloping a planet. "This is the last transmission from our colony on Kildaris Prime," Vex explained. "The Voidborn consumed the entire planet in less than 1 Earth week. Our strongest warriors, our most powerful weapons, useless against them." Walker studied the hologram, a chill running down his spine. "Why do you think humans would fare any better?" "Because you think differently," Vex replied simply. The Taldari evolved to perfect our physical forms. For thousands of years, this served us well. But against the Voidborn, physical strength means nothing. We need new ideas, new approaches, what you might call thinking outside the box. This is something humans excel at. The hologram shifted to show a massive fleet of Taldari vessels. This is not an invasion force, Lieutenant Walker. This is the remaining fleet of the Taldari people. 10 million survivors on 300 ships, searching for allies and solutions. Walker sat in silence for a moment, the weight of this revelation settling on his shoulders. The alien fleet hadn't positioned itself as a blockade, but as a desperate last stand of a species on the brink of extinction. If these Voidborn destroy your outer colonies, Walker said slowly, what's to stop them from following you here? From threatening Earth? Vex's posture stiffened again. Nothing. They will come eventually. That is why we seek alliance now, before it is too late for both our peoples. Walker stood, decision made. I need to report this to Earth Command immediately. They need to know what we're facing. And what will you tell them, Lieutenant Walker? Vex asked, rising to his full height. That the Taldari are worthy allies, or that we should be turned away. Walker met the alien's four-eyed gaze steadily. I'll tell them the truth, General Vex. That humanity may have just found both its greatest ally and its greatest challenge. Walker's shuttle docked with the Vigilant amid a flurry of activity. The crew had been on high alert during his absence, and now they gathered anxiously as their commander returned with news that would change the course of human history. Report, Lieutenant, Officer Lin said as Walker stepped onto the bridge, still bearing the marks of his combat with Vex. Walker looked at the faces of his crew, humans who had no idea that an existential threat was moving through the galaxy, consuming worlds in its path. Open a secure channel to Earth Command, Walker ordered. Priority Alpha. As the communications officer worked to establish the connection, Walker briefly explained what he had learned. The crew listened in stunned silence. So they're refugees? Officer Reed asked. Not invaders. Refugees with the most powerful fleet I've ever seen, Walker confirmed. And they're running from something far worse than anything we've encountered. The view screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Jones and several other high-ranking officials at Earth Command. Lieutenant Walker, the Admiral began, we've been monitoring your situation closely. Your vital signs showed considerable stress during your meeting. Are you injured? Nothing serious, sir, Walker replied. But I have critical information about the Taldari and a threat called the Voidborn. For the next 20 minutes, Walker detailed everything he had learned. He transmitted the holographic data Vex had provided and explained the Taldari's request for alliance. This is troubling information, Admiral Jones said when Walker finished. How can we verify these claims? This could be an elaborate deception to gain our trust. I considered that possibility, sir, Walker said. But the Taldari could have destroyed us at any time if conquest was their goal. Their technology is far superior to ours. What do you recommend, Lieutenant? The Admiral asked. Walker stood straighter. I recommend we accept their offer of alliance, sir, but conditionally. We should request a knowledge exchange, their advanced technology for our adaptive problem-solving. And we should begin preparing Earth for the possibility that these Voidborn might eventually reach our system. The Admiral and his staff conferred quietly for a moment before turning back to the screen. Very well, Lieutenant. Return to the trading station and inform General Vex that we're open to further discussions. A diplomatic team will depart Earth within 24 hours to begin formal negotiations. After the transmission ended, Walker returned to his shuttle. This time, Officer Lin insisted on accompanying him. With respect, sir, she said firmly, you're not going alone again. When they arrived at the trading station, they found General Vex waiting patiently in the meeting room. You've returned, Vex observed, and you've brought another warrior. This is Officer Lin, my second in command, Walker introduced. Earth Command has considered your proposal and is sending a diplomatic team to begin formal alliance negotiations. Vex's upper arms made a gesture that Walker now recognized as satisfaction. "This is welcome news, Lieutenant Walker. The Tal'Dari High Command will be pleased. There's one more thing," Walker added. "Earth Command has proposed an immediate exchange of knowledge. We believe that combining Tal'Dari physical prowess and technology with human adaptability and problem-solving may give us our best chance against the Voidborn." "A wise approach," Vex agreed. "To face an enemy that exists partly outside normal space, we must think partly outside normal boundaries." Over the next several hours, as they waited for the diplomats to arrive, Walker, Lin, and Vex began the first informal exchange of ideas between their species. Walker described how humans had overcome countless challenges through history, disease, climate change, resource depletion, not through superior strength, but through innovation and cooperation. Vex explained Tal'Dari physical training techniques that could enhance human physical capabilities and described technologies that could strengthen Earth's defenses. "There is an old Tal'Dari saying," Vex told them as they worked. "The strongest warrior can be defeated by a clever opponent. The strongest and cleverest warrior is undefeatable." 3 days later, the Tal'Dari fleet repositioned. Instead of blocking Earth's trade route to Mars, they spread out in a defensive formation that protected the entire inner solar system. Earth's initial panic at the alien arrival had transformed into cautious optimism about their new allies. On the Vigilant, now assigned as liaison to the Tal'Dari fleet, Walker stood at the viewport watching Earth and Tal'Dari ships training together in joint maneuvers. "It's remarkable," Officer Lin said, joining him. "A week ago, we thought we were facing an invasion. Now we're preparing to face something much worse, together." Walker nodded. "General Vex told me something interesting yesterday. In Tal'Dari culture, after warriors fight together against a common enemy, they're considered family, bound by something stronger than blood or species. Do you think we can actually defeat these Voidborn?" Lin asked quietly. Walker watched as a small Tal'Dari craft executed a complex maneuver that human pilots were attempting to learn, a technique that would have been impossible for Earth vessels just days ago. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know this. If the Voidborn can be defeated, it won't be by Tal'Dari strength alone, or human adaptability alone. It will be by what we become together." In the darkness of deep space, billions of miles beyond Neptune, a faint disturbance rippled through the void, the first tendrils of a force that consumed worlds, following the trail of those who had flooded. The Voidborn were coming. But for the first time since they had appeared, they would face an enemy unlike any before, 2 species united, each making the other stronger than either could be alone. The inspection that had nearly led to battle had instead forged an alliance that might just save them all.